Get her going here. Hello, and thank you all for coming to celebrate our father, Chet Whitman's life. My brother, sister, and I would first like to thank Dad's caregivers for the last months. They were amazing. Chris Jovanovich, Lupe Rodriguez, Dana Wing, Pam Smith, Jackie Long, John Lucas, and Annette Hilton. They were just wonderful. To Dad, showing him great love and respect, allowing him to be at home in his big old lounger, watching sports and Fox News with the sound off, of course. And thanks to all those who stopped by to see him, call him, email him, and who showed up for his 90th birthday party. It meant the world to him. So Dad grew up in the Avalon area of West Seattle, graduated West Seattle High, went on to the UW, and started out pursuing a chemical engineering degree. But after a year of formulas, he decided that he didn't want to spend the rest of his life in a lab. So he changed his major and went into forestry and thoroughly enjoyed that. After graduation, he went into Officers Candidate School, and then he served on a attack cargo ship in the Korean War. He told us that one of his most lasting memories of this time was when he first stood watch at night at sea, the lone officer on the bridge, in charge, and having the awesome responsibility for the ship and its men. His words, at the ripe old age of 23. Dad was a character. He loved adventure, doing things, building things, helping people. He loved being with people, working together, and especially if it involved creating something good to help someone. Dad volunteered his time continuously throughout the years, going to England for Wycliffe to build homes, Africa to build a school, Central America with Dr. Lemley to act as a dental assistant to pull teeth. She may have enjoyed this last one just a bit too much. Dad was also a compassionate and caring man. If someone was down a bit on his luck, he would offer a friendly ear, maybe some Bible wisdom, and a spare room, a spare bed to sleep in. He was involved with this church, helping to rebuild this beautiful structure after the first one burned down. He did many work parties, mowing, and burning up here for years. Clee in the office told us the other day that Dad would stop by and tell her he was about to burn. She would immediately call the fire department. He would ask, "Is it Chet?" And she would say, "Yeah." "Okay, thanks. Thanks for the heads up." I'm guessing he had a bit of a reputation there. Pastor Luke told us it reminded him of a mafia scene. There was fire and smoke, and then a bit later, the big old black cab would slowly cruise out the driveway. So he got me involved in a project up here a few springs back. The fire department told the church they could no longer use the basement for the youth to hang out in and play games, music, and have a place to go on Friday nights. The basement had to have another egress door, and it drove him crazy. So he grabbed me and a friend, Dale Christensen, and we moved in, dug it out, built the rockery, and then he grabbed Scott Betts, and Scott built the sidewalks, and the kids were back in business. As far as I can tell, the first sign of Dad's desire to tackle big projects with groups of friends manifested itself in his college years when one summer he jumped on an ancient old dozer and began to hollow out for a giant swimming pool on the new family property at Colas. He somehow talked a bunch of his friends into helping with this colossal project, forming giant walls, mixing by hand enough concrete to build this big in-ground pool complete with a boiler off a little tub. I asked him one day, how was he able to get this kind of commitment out of his friends? And he said they had a great time, they had huge fun, and it didn't hurt to have three pretty sisters around either. That pool later became the center of many family parties, but more importantly, provided a place for swimming lessons for many of the North End kids. Dad's business interests were varied and wide-ranging. This included helping his father manage a sawmill and an export dock, dismantling Navy ships. He spent 2 years raising a ship the fire department sank and successfully removed it from the waterway by floating it on its side. A colossal achievement and a Herculean effort as stated by the award he received from the Seattle maritime industry. He converted ships for the fishing industry. He built warehouses and docks. And Dad had a pretty high tolerance for risk. Something he mentioned might have been passed down from his grandfather who went to Alaska for the gold rush of 1849. In this arena, and because of his experience, he was involved in raising sunken barges, and he was flown down to the Bikini Atoll by the United States Department of Defense to look at floating a German heavy cruiser, which was involved in the H-bomb tests, was blown onto a reef upside down, full of ordnance, and pointed into the depths of the Pacific. He said it was very interesting, but maybe just a bit too hairy even for him. And Mom was glad he passed on that one. He did, however, find no reason not to get involved in an old conquistador silver mine in Mexico, or to send me to the South Pacific to bring the ship back. Dad was just one of those guys that was fun to hang out with, do things with. He helped me many, many times at work. If I was short an operator, he always had a big smile. When he could jump in a loader, excavator, dozer, it didn't matter. He was in his element, and he was an exceptionally gifted operator. In the last few years, it became more difficult for him to get across the bull rail on the dock and to climb up the barge ladders, which are pretty tall. So we solved this by him climbing in a loader bucket, and I'd lift him up, and lift him down, so he could still run the loaders on the barges. Right up to last year. Not exactly OSHA approved, but he also helped me with many, many of my personal projects, always ready to go, especially if it involved a chainsaw or a machine. And of course, speaking of the chainsaw, I believe that tool was probably just an extension of his left arm. He learned to fall very large trees in college in Packard Forest, and used this skill to help many people on the island with problem trees or fallen branches. Dad could drop a tree right where he wanted it. I don't believe I ever saw him miss by much. But there was one time I came home in the old GMC, we called it the Goldenrod, had a sizable crease across its nose. And I asked him what happened. Never mind. It's just a minor communication issue. He loved the whole process. He exercised, working outdoors with close friends, usually Bill in the later years. I'd call him up in the morning and ask if he was going to get down to get that branch that fell, and he would say, he and Bill were solving the world's problems over coffee, and would soon stick their noses out to check the weather. He referred to himself and Bill as a couple of ants who may not get it the first day, but they would always get it, and there would just be chips left. By far, his greatest enjoyment, however, came from giving the rewards of his hard work to the older folks and to those in need on the island that were short wood for their upcoming winter heat. He delivered countless cords, or just left the key in his truck, and it could be borrowed, and never worrying about his own supply, always saying there was no shortage of raw material, and he was still cutting and splitting right up to last spring at 89. In the past few years, he found it more difficult to handle the larger trees, and so became accustomed to coming down and jumping in the little excavator that kept the place. And he would hold the tree, and he would cut it up like a cucumber. Then he would grab the rounds and drop them in his truck. And I mean, drop them in his truck. I assume you all seen his trucks. There was no Chevy commercial there. He wasn't afraid to get in the brush either. I had to pull him out a few times. He'd call him, "Hey, where's that come along?" "Were you stuck, Dad?" Mom did not care very much for the saw in the back seat and the chips everywhere, and the aroma of the two-stroke oil for his car freshener. He never needed no sissy aftershave either. Just ask Dorothy up at Sporty's. I once overheard her say, "I just love that smell, Chet." And he smiled and looked over at me and said, "Alder smoke gets him every time." So as Paul McCartney wrote, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And you all sure gave our dad a whole lot of love. Thank you.